Thank you, Madam Chair. Today is Validation Day. Today is the Crown demonstrating through democracy, when the executive holds a majority in the House, that Parliament is sovereign. This is simply the executive that has a solemn duty to ensure that those mammals in the animal kingdom, otherwise known as human beings, don't play second fiddle to Freddie. We're not having that. This is also an opportunity for this side of the House to remind Kiwis that when the High Court makes a random decision, it is not unreasonable for the mining industry, the transport industry, the infrastructure industry, property developers to ensure that the weaponisation of random skinks, hitherto unknown insects, and various other geckos, and those things that cackle beyond the other side of the House, that they will not trump the need for communities to enjoy access to reliable infrastructure. The virtue of this piece of legislation is that it is retrospective. It corrects a flight of jurisprudential development, which is a threat to the pace at which we develop the country. But let us contemplate how we have arrived at this situation. We are fixing up a problem that Labor left. Labor and the Greens had 3 unfettered years of power. 3 unfettered years where they could use their authority liberally to have fixed up this problem. No, they decided to hold policy seances. They decided to have an endless set of meetings in windowless and sunless rooms, not unlike the character they bring to their politics. It's fallen upon my colleague, Honourable Tama Potaka, to seize this issue and rescue the development of New Zealand's infrastructure from a narrow vested, and I have to say, Madam Chair, it's a very shadowy group that has brought this litigation. Their thinking is spawned in murk. Apparently the funder comes from somewhere in the South Island. I'm encouraging the media to look into what is the background of the funder of this subversive guerrilla-like organisation called ELI. They must be subject to the disinfectant-like qualities of sunlight, because they are wandering around interfering in the ambitions of communities to grow, finding obscure, pettifogging-orientated references in the law, and they're weaponising them. And I look forward to the Resource Management Act, the reform of the Fisheries Act, further reform of the Wildlife Act to ensure, indeed, the Conservation Act, to ensure there is balance. So it's actually a pleasure, Madam Speaker, in this third reading speech to remind all the men and women out there today, digging coal, looking for gold, generating wealth in the quarries, looking for new critical minerals, that their interests have not been subjugated by a small, unelected cast of intellectuals known as ecologists who keep looking for bats until the number 2s of a bat are discovered. I could have quickly directed their attention to number 2s in the House, however, that's another matter. So, we do look forward to further work on the Wildlife Act, but in the short term, let's celebrate the fact that this is a government who's going to stand up for investment certainty, jobs, growth. As I said last night, in the past I talked about the neffs off the couch. With investment in jobs, I'll get the neffs off the meth. Kia ora tātou katoa.
Once again, Shane Jones finding an entertaining way of raising an issue. And it's quite simple as this. What should we do as a society, as a country? Should we go down the leftist nonsense way of dealing with very important things such as the discussion on mining and infrastructure and how we shouldn't do any of that because it might be harmful to our environment? Or should we look at it in a more proactive way, in a way that makes more sense, which is that we need to advance our society, we need to improve the lives of those in our communities, particularly in more rural areas, and allow them to engage in employment such as mining, allow them to get work in these large infrastructure projects, which are not only going to keep them employed, but also allow them as a community greater access to the rest of New Zealand, and hopefully drive growth into those regions. Meanwhile, Labour and the Greens and that lot on the other side of the house want to see them fall into obscurity. These are the simple things that put New Zealanders first, which I think people take for granted. These are the more simple policies and these simple changes to legislation which go under the radar. When people come to the next election, they'll be like, what did NZ First do? Things like this. They do this sort of little stuff every single time they're in power. No one takes notice of it because it's not some massive, significant policy. It's not some treaty principles bill. It's not the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi deletion bill from 2005 or whatever it was. These are the little things which actually make a difference that often go under the radar. So to everyone in the coalition supporting it, bravo to you. This is the sort of thing we need to help bring our regions out of obscurity and into a flourishing future.